Aerosmith. 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 All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, Aerosmith going on in the background. Of course, I'm a fan. Of course. Anyway. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I don't think is being properly covered in the media. And that topic is institutional racism. And what I want to talk about is what it is, why you need to care about it, and why Bernie Sanders is the only one that gets it. And he's the only one with a real solution to actually solving the problem. Now, first of all, what is institutional racism? Whenever you hear that term, what do you think about? You think about the idea of, police brutality, Black Lives Matter. This idea of white privilege gets thrown around all the time, But what does all of that mean, right? To me, institutional racism, and this is what I think it really is, institutional racism is a system of oppression that was implemented after, during the time of segregation. And it was a system that was created and has been nurtured and has been continued for decades with the goal to disenfranchise blacks, to turn them into criminals, or to have them not involved in the political process. Now, this sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, right? Well, let's just stop and just look at society for a second. Let's just look at everything. Engineering school. Have you ever stopped to wonder if you walk into any engineering school right now, anywhere in the country, and just sit in the back of the class like a fly on the wall and just look around, why is it that there are no black people in there? Or if there are black people, they're from other countries, they're international students. Where are all the American blacks? Is it that black people don't like engineering? Or is it that black people are mentally incapable of doing engineering? Well, obviously that can't be, because there are international black students that are there that are doing it. So we know that mental faculties isn't the issue. So then what exactly is the issue? The answer, my friend, is the culture. And when I say culture, I'm not talking about black culture like what's commonly referred to on Fox News. What I'm talking about is American culture as a whole. Now, I remember once when I was visiting some family up in New York, I decided that I wanted to get a book. It wasn't a textbook or anything. It was a modern automotive technology. I wanted to get this book. It was a trade book so you could learn how to become a mechanic. So, this was back when I was a mechanical engineering student, So I've always had this interest. So I decided to go on, Google to try to find a bookstore. Couldn't find one in Jamaica, Queens. Just couldn't find one. It did not exist. So I decided, no, this is impossible. It's probably not advertised. So I took a bus down to Jamaica Avenue, where surely there's got to be a bookstore down there. I mean, they have 1 million stores there. Found a lot of clothes stores, found a lot of shoe stores, found tons of electronic stores. Not a single bookstore. In order to find a bookstore in Queens, I had to take a bus, a train, and I had to walk a couple blocks down 42nd Street to find one Barnes & Noble. Why is that? Why is that? Now think about the effect that that has on the community. Noam Chomsky talks about this idea of fashionable consumption. And it's this idea of getting people away from the idea of buying things that are going to help them, but having them develop this mode of thinking and this culture of just working to buy things that are fashionable. So like, you know, the latest cell phone, the latest shoes that's out there, you know, clothes, whatever. Shit that doesn't mean a thing, you know. Knowledge is something that this society has tried to protect and try to keep in the hands of a privileged few. Now, this is just one small example, but let's look at the bigger picture with the education system. Why is it that we take for granted that a school in a black community is not going to be as good as a school in a suburban white community? Yes, it's supported by property taxes, but why is it that we accept this? This is what I'm talking about. Now, where does the police brutality fit into all of this? It's very simple. Cops, I'm not saying all cops, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good cops out there, but people are going to always pick on people who are weaker than them, people who can't fight back. It's very obvious whenever a cop sees a white guy in a suit, more than likely that guy is connected or he's rich enough to hire a lawyer that will make my life a living hell. But if I see a black guy wearing, you know, a pair of sneakers and has a hat turned backwards, that guy ain't connected to shit. That guy I can do anything to. That guy I can use to make up my quota, to make my department happy. This is where police brutality comes from. It's because the blacks are disenfranchised and they're easy targets. So now, why do you need to care about this issue? The answer is very simple. It's because the problem is spreading. For the very first time, we're at a unique place in history where it's not simply just black people who are being targeted by this system. It's now spreading to white people. It's now spreading to lower class whites, to middle class people. It has become something that's no longer, well, it is still very racially motivated, but I think it has expanded. The system of oppression now is meant at keeping access to education, keeping access to good healthcare, access to good food, and all of these other means of social mobility in the hands of the top 1% or a few well-off people. Nowadays, it is very difficult to raise a family of with 2 kids and a wife on $60,000 a year. That never used to be like that, but now that's an issue. And it's because the powers that be figured out that, look, yeah, victimizing black people, that's easy, but we can expand that. We can expand the base. We can turn people in society from potentially creative beings or people who are hard to govern to people that can be used just to consume products. People who can just be metriced out and analyzed. Now, why is it that Bernie Sanders is the only presidential candidate that gets this? It's because he is approaching this issue as an economic issue. And he understands that in order to fix the problems of institutional racism and classism that are intrinsically linked, that the only way to do it is to have a fundamental change in the way how we do everything. So what do I mean by that? One, if you raise the incomes, the salaries of people, you get rid of this idea that somebody from a poorer family or maybe didn't get the chance to go to college for whatever reason no longer has to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to make ends meet and to put food on the table. Now that person can spend more time with their children. Now that person can hold the standards up higher. The second thing that he's trying to do is free college education. Right now, yes, there are several Pell Grants and other, financial aid and stuff, and these programs are excellent. Republicans are, of course, trying to get rid of them. But these programs are excellent. But a lot of people, one, don't even know that these programs exist. And two, just, they don't pay enough. They don't pay enough to cover the cost of tuition by themselves. Not until you become an adult and you're no longer considered a minor, where it's no longer income based, then you'll actually get a lot more in student loans, and a lot of times that's enough to cover college education costs. Bernie is the only one that gets it, that in order to fix institutional racism, you need to empower society. You need to raise people up. You need to change the way how things work. In Jamaica, we're very influenced by Rastafarian culture. And Bob Marley has a line in his song, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." That is what institutional racism is. It's mental slavery. It's oppression. It's a system created to keep people down, to keep people thinking that you have no other option. Your options are just to play ball or to get a music career or, something else, be a gangbanger or something else, Education is not something that's trumpeted as a viable solution. Bernie Sanders is trying to change that. Now, if you fix the education system, you fix the livable wage system, you fix the healthcare system, you pass policies that give people, access to daycare. All of this will significantly help, and it will begin to move society forward and help us to become more equal as a society. It will fix the problem of institutional racism. And it will also, when you have more empowered blacks, guess what? Cops aren't going to fuck with them anymore. Because now all of a sudden that guy can afford a lawyer. This is how you change society. Bernie Sanders gets it. And that's all I had to say. Now let's listen to some Aerosmith.